Okay, so moving on to the next team in the Big Ten, and this is going to be the team that I have coming in eighth place in this league, and that would be Juwan Howard and his Michigan Wolverines. And Coach Howard will be entering his second year as the head coach on the job, who replaced John Beeline. And I think overall last year, Juwan Howard did a really good job with this Michigan team. Early in the season, I think he really gained not only the players' confidence, but a lot of the fan base's confidence when he took his Wolverines all the way to the Bahamas and ended up winning the battle for Atlantis. And I understand that a lot of Michigan fans are going to see the fact that I have them ranked as the eighth best team in the Big Ten, and they're going to say, Zach, why are you so down on Michigan? And to be honest, I'm not down on Michigan. I think they are a top 30, a top 35 team that is going to make the NCAA tournament. It's just, if you are a fan of any Big Ten team, you're going to know that this league in basketball this year is going to be so deep, and I think there's a legitimate chance that it could get 10 to 11 teams making the NCAA tournament, and obviously Michigan is one of them. Now, unfortunately, they do lose a couple key pieces from last year's squad. Couple off the bat are Xavier Simpson, John Teskey, and David DeJulius. Xavier Simpson was one of the most important players in not only the Big Ten, but all of college basketball last year. Over the last 3 years of his career, Xavier Simpson turned into one of the best defenders in college basketball, one of the most impactful players, I think, in Michigan program history, guiding them all the way to a Final Four his sophomore year. And Michigan is obviously going to miss him a lot. Now, Juwan Howard did do a little bit to try to at least improve his point guard situation by bringing in Mike Smith, the grad transfer from Columbia. You're going to look at his numbers on the stat sheet and see, he averaged 22.8 points per game, 4.1 rebounds per game, and about 4.5 assists per game. And yeah, you're going to say, wow, those are numbers that really drop off the bat, and Michigan would be in a good position at point guard going forward. But at the same time, as we spoke about a lot on the Zach Kroll Sports Podcast preview edition for college basketball, sometimes when transfers are making that jump from mid-major, and in this case the Ivy League, from the Big Ten, it's going to take some time. And my only small concern with this Michigan team right now is if Mike Smith doesn't make that jump, who exactly is going to be the starting point guard for this team? Eli Brooks? I don't think that's an ideal situation if you are a fan of the Michigan Wolverines. And Eli Brooks had a very good season last year. He's a very good defender. I think his role, though, is just better as that sixth man that gives you 10 to 12 points per game. But there are some other reasons why I really do like this Michigan team. The first one is Franz Wagner. The 6'9 sophomore averaged 11.6 points per game, 5.6 rebounds per game, and 1 assist per game. And watching him last year, even though he was super impressive, he looked a little raw. And I feel like you could tell that he's bound to get better and better and better as long as he stays in college. And I wouldn't be shocked, to be honest, if, along like his brother, Michigan loses Franz early to the NBA, because I think he's just a perfect modern-day NBA player given his size and his shooting ability and his skill. Also, they bring back Isaiah Livers, who, the 6'7 senior, averaged 13 points a game, 4 rebounds per game, and he was another guy that I think last year was really able to take a step forward on the offensive side of the ball. And watching that, his first couple of years of his college career, he was like a role player, rebounder, pretty good defender, would score a little bit, make a three every so often. But last year, he showed that he could be one of the go-to guys on a really good basketball team. And I'm looking forward to see what that front court of Wagner, Livers, and Hunter Dickinson, the freshman, could do. Dickinson, the 7'1 freshman, he's going to get some big-time minutes as the team's starting center, obviously replacing John Teskey, who I think Michigan's going to miss, by the way. I think he's going to end up being one of the more underrated players in the history of that program, and I do feel like we were robbed seeing a guy like John Teskey not being able to get the chance to lead the Wolverines in the NCAA tournament, because he deserved it. He was really good last year. And Michigan also loses David DeJulius to Cincinnati, and that was a surprise transfer, because I think DeJulius was in a very good position to play some big-time minutes for this Michigan team. I think he was super impressive last year, and I think he's going to play right away for a really good Cincinnati Bearcat team in the American Athletic Conference. So that was one move in the offseason that really did surprise me, but it's not like all is lost, though, because Michigan actually brought in Shawn D. Brown, and he got a waiver. Brown is a former top 25-ish recruit from Wake Forest who's going to be entering his senior season. He's 6'5", averaged 12-6 last year at Wake, and I'm curious to see how he adjusts playing for a team like Michigan, because even though, yeah, he played in the ACC, but it's not like Wake Forest won anything during Chaundy's time there. So now that he's on a more legitimate team here at the University of Michigan that's going to be competing for an NCAA tournament appearance, I'm going to be curious to see how he takes that role going forward. But overall, I just think this Michigan team is really good. It's just the fact that they're in the best conference and the most deepest conference in college basketball this season, which is the Big Ten. I can't justify putting Michigan over Michigan State or Iowa or Illinois or Wisco or even Rutgers. I think Michigan's closer to that tier in Rutgers. Michigan played well against Rutgers in both head-to-head meetings last year. I think Ohio State, Indiana, all of those teams are in the same tier as Michigan. It's just the fact that Michigan is losing 3 really important players, and I have to see with my eyes first improvements from guys like Austin Davis. He's going to play 15 minutes a game. Juwan Howard is a big fan of his. I'm curious to see what exactly his big man rotation is with him and Hunter Dickinson. They also bring in Zeb Jackson, the 6'5 freshman. I do believe if Smith and or Eli Brooks struggles at that point guard position, if I'm Juwan Howard, I wouldn't be scared at all going to a kid like Zeb Jackson who has really good size and can play both guard spots. And ultimately, I think he could be a very important piece for this Michigan team. But right now, I have a projecting started 5 of Mike Smith at the 1. Obviously, you're going to really hope that works out well for you, but at the same time, he's a guy that played in the Ivy League last year, albeit, once again, 22 points per game. I'm just not 100% sure that if you're a winning team, you could have that right away slide in for Xavier Simpson, especially when you consider the fact how many ball screens Juwan Howard really focused around the offense last year with Xavier Simpson and John Teskey in that pick and roll. Those two, chemistry-wise, were great, and I'm curious to see, without those two guys on the floor now, how exactly that affects this Michigan Wolverine offense. So I think Michigan is a NCAA tournament team. Obviously, I think Juwan Howard was a really good hire for the circumstances that they were dealt. John Beilein obviously decided to go to the Cleveland Cavaliers, and he did such a good job throughout his tenure at the University of Michigan. But Juwan Howard has really tried to target the other approach of, all right, I'm going to try to go get the Isaiah Todds of the world and the other big-name recruits, and then we'll see what happens in terms of the role players. Obviously, Livers, Wagner, Eli Brooks, these are all John Beilein guys, but now as time goes on, Juwan Howard is adjusting the program towards the kind of recruits that he was focused on bringing in from the beginning. So I have Michigan coming in 8th place in the Big Ten. Obviously, you're going to see that right off the bat and say, wow, that's low, but at the same time, I'm telling you, it's not because they're bad, it's because the Big Ten is that deep and that good.